Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 3754. Today's date is 11th of December 2025. It's been almost like a morning at 9:05 a.m. All right. Should we jump into the question? Let's go. All right. The question is, what if parallel universe collide? Oh, okay. That's a good question. Okay. First of all, what exactly is this question, and why am I asking this question to myself? This is what if question. Why am I asking this question to myself? What if question is always a really interested way to give the answer. It kind of like force you to think about that reality. When I try to think about that reality, or when I try to create that reality, I'm kind of like utilizing my knowledge and experience and information that I've been through, and it kind of like feel really good. Disclaimer: the information that I'm trying to tell you is not exactly right or is not exactly wrong either. It's raw, it's unfiltered, it's just my opinion. So do not believe in any kind of like information that I'm saying, or do not seek for any kind of like information that I'm saying. It's just my opinion, and opinion are subjective. Alright, yeah. Now regarding about the question says that what if the parallel universe collide? Now, if I'm gonna imagine that a kind of like a parallel universe, like first of all, do I believe that parallel universe are actually exist? uh I I don't know. I think that na ki I am a very kind of like a somebody very, I'm not a kind of like somebody a credible person to kind of like a talk about this particular very scientific thing. Because if I'm gonna say parallel universe means it's beyond our imagination. Like basically we can't even imagine our universe. How does we kind of like imagine a parallel universe? It's a kind of like a thing that na ki uh, it's not okay. Probably is this enough from human point of perspective, from at least my point of perspective. I am not a kind of like a credible person to kind of like understand the parallel universe. If it exists or not, I am not really sure. It is sometime it exists, sometime it don't. I don't know. There are multiples of possibility that people might gonna talk about this thing that key every decision that we took creates new reality. Like basically is this thing that key if I went to engineering college, then probably it would have another reality, and I'm not given to the engineering college, so this is the reality. So that reality is a kind of like a creates new parallel universe. So every decision that we took, even the small decision creates the parallel universe, and that is kind of like a something confuse me, or I don't know what exactly is this thing. So by the way, from practical point of perspective, we don't really have any kind of like a practical evidence that a parallel universe actually exists, or kind of like a multi universe is kind of like exist or not. I'm not really sure. At some time I think that it is like it would be possible, but sometime I realize that it's not. It's, I don't know, it's kind of like a beyond our imagination. Okay, yeah. So that's why I couldn't able to be kind of like a think about that possible perspective. Okay, yeah. So what exactly is this thing? So do I believe that a parallel universe actually exists? Well, for the sake of this question, I kind of like a believe that ki, yeah, might be kind of like a simply parallel universe might gonna exist, but still wait for the scientist and wait for the kind of like a practical evidence. Then yeah, but I'm trying to kind of like a create the hypothetical scenario that ki, what if two parallel universe are kind of like a collide with each other? So what would be that particular happen? So imagine a kind of like a simply a universe means a uh, paper sheet of paper. Okay, yeah. Like basically kind of like a newspaper is called as kind of like a simply news our universe. Okay, yeah. And there is also another sheet of paper who is kind of like a simply, if you put one in other one in one on top each other, okay, kind of like a simply book. Okay, yeah, each paper is kind of like considered as a each universe, and each paper is kind of like called as a kind of like a multiple universe. So when both the paper are kind of like when you close the book, all those kind of like a paper are kind of like a merge into the simple book and things like that. So if I could imagine that what if kind of like a two parallel will kind of like a simply collide, then what would be that particular happen? So basically is this thing, I am trying to give you information regarding about the information that I have till now. Okay, yeah. I'm not really sure about the future, what would be the what would be the kind of like assembly, what would be the parallel universe and things like that. I am considering that ki parallel universe is a kind of like assembly, a reality where we kind of like assembly have to choose something. Okay, yeah, and each decision that we choose create new reality. So I'm kind of like a thinking like that. I'm thinking like that ki there is a part of me who is kind of like a something are alive in different universe. Okay, yeah, who is kind of like doing something very differently because the choices that I made and stuff like that. Okay, yeah. So if such thing will gonna happen, if such thing like if the both the universe are actually collide each other, then it kind of like question in its reality. Okay, yeah. Now what is actually question its reality means what? Like imagine is this thing that ki okay, yeah, I chose like basically is this thing, I am unable to went to engineering college. Okay, I cannot able to go to the engineering college because I didn't get that many mark. Because of that, ki for the engineering college, I need 120 marks. I get 111. So because of I didn't get 9 marks, so that's why I cannot able to go into the engineering college. Okay, so this is my universe. This is my reality. Now, if I consider that there is also another reality that I get 121 marks. So if I get 121 marks, then obviously I am very much eligible for go to the engineering college. So basically, is this thing in this particular moment, there is a entire life is actually shifted differently, right? Yeah. Like in one reality, I didn't really went to the engineering college, and one reality is kind of like a went into the engineering college. So after those things, there are multiple of possibilities actually change. If I went to engineering college, God knows what happened. Things happened. Went to another college, went to another city, went to another hostel, went to another people around me. Different thought process align, kind of like a looking at their perspective, things like that. My life would be something very much differently. Okay, because at that time I was not actually recording Artifact. Okay, I started recording Artifact in 2015, and this scenario is actually happened in 2011. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing that ki entire shiftment will gonna happen. Like basically if I went to engineering college, then uh, I didn't really record the Artifact, and if I didn't really record the Artifact, then there is no massive changes actually happen inside of me that it kind of like happened with me right now. Okay, yeah. So there are multiples of kind of like a things will gonna happen. Okay, yeah. So imagine a scenario, okay, a reality where both of me, like a one person went into the engineering college and one person didn't went to the engineering college, collide each other, then our reality would be mix of both. Okay, yeah. A kind of like a only person who is actually available going to the engineering college, and one person going to the engineering diploma, kind of like that. Okay, like imagine a kind of like a things, my name is Saurabh Avthare, so there is a two Saurabh Avthare. Okay, yeah. Now one Saurabh Avthare, like both Saurabh Avthare are real, authentic and real. Okay, yeah. But one Saurabh Avthare are kind of like a went into the engineering college, went into the kind of like a, let's just say Nagpur, Pune, to kind of like a went into the engineering college. And one Saurabh Avthare are stay in the hometown Varda and kind of like a doing the engineering diploma. Okay, yeah. So in this particular context, who are we? My name is Saurabh Avthare, but that particular person is Saurabh Avthare too. And both have kind of like a same parents and things and that and that. And this actually happened, it kind of like a creates the chaos. Okay, yeah. Because there is no kind of like a simply replica of me, there is a replica of everyone. Okay, yeah. And sometimes we kind of like a merge that replica too. Like sometimes we kind of like a say this thing that my replica means like my name is Saurabh Avthare, I didn't went to the engineering college. There is a Saurabh Avthare who went to engineering college, who is kind of like a came in front of you, I could see him, he could see me. Okay, so basically if such thing will gonna reality happen, then probably we are gonna asking question to ourselves that who are we. Okay, yeah. And who are you, and basically this is kind of like a very very like in practical sense of point of perspective, it's not possibly happen, it's not possible true, it's not possibly impossible. Okay, yeah. It's not kind of like a it's completely impossible, by the way. But still if I could imagine that point of perspective, then it would be kind of like a very very chaos. Okay, because as I mentioned, it's not kind of like some replica of me is actually exist. It kind of like some multiple people have multiple replica. Okay, yeah. Like let's just say my friend has a two version. Okay, yeah. So suddenly there is a 8.1 billion people. There is almost like a 16.2 billion people probably. Okay, yeah, exist. And kind of like a replica of each other and things and that and that. There is a lot of thing will gonna happen. Also it's this thing that could take a kind of like a such a person who kind of like a somebody die in this particular context and die in accident, and another person is kind of like a didn't really die in accident. So probably is this thing that keep there is a lot of kind of like a variation will gonna happen. There is a lot of chaos will gonna happen. We are not really meant to know who are we, what we are, and things like that. Now this is just a kind of like a somebody it, and this is called kind of like a somebody quantum level of probably a quantum level of kind of like a replica create. And I don't know, like basically if I could started imagine this particular world, I cannot able to imagine that particular world. Like basically it's not just replica of us, it's replica of each planet, our entire solar system, the sun, earth, and things and that and that. It's yeah, it's just like that. Now it's a there is a one movie that I kind of like pop up in my head. What is that name of movie? uh, uh okay, have you watched the Spider-Man first Spider-Man movie? Okay, yeah. uh, the in the first Spider-Man movie, first like Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man. Okay, I'm not talking about the Andrew Garfield or Tom. No, I'm talking about the first. I'm not really sure his name, but the actress has kind of like a movie, kind of like a movie about a kind of like a love story where two Earth are colliding each other. Okay, both our Earth are kind of like a parallel to each other, and there is a kind of like a bridge between that kind of like a building who is kind of like connected to that particular one world to another world. And yeah, practically those both the planet are kind of like assembly parallel to each other. They are kind of like a sharing the same gravity and things and that and that. And if such thing will gonna happen, then probably is this thing that like I'm started to imagine this particular thought process and things like that. And I don't know, yeah, dude. It's like that, na ki imagination kind of like a creates lot of things, but I kind of like a person who's kind of like a think about a scientific point of perspective, because it's not possible to kind of like assembly one planet equivalent to the size of our planet, which kind of like close to us and didn't really collide. It's not okay, yeah, because yeah, it's a very I don't know, yeah. Like basically, if I try to imagine this thing, now I try to imagine from every possible perspective and things and that and that. So I don't know, dude. If I kind of like simply imagine this particular piece of context that probably when two parallel universe actually collide with each other, I I don't I think that na I cannot able to be imagine that particular context, or maybe there is only one thing that I could imagine is a destruction. The entire solar system and entire kind of like assembly, the universe actually broken and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. And by the way, these parallel universe are kind of like assembly very kind of like assembly very uh, a frictionalized version probably. Okay, yeah. I'm not really sure by the way is a parallel universe that actually exists or things like that. Like most of the scientists actually believe that we are actually part of the bubble. Okay, like let's just say a bubble. In this bubble we call it as a universe, our universe. Okay, yeah. There is a multiple are actually bubbles are actually exist. Okay, yeah. And each bubble has its own universe and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. Now basically is this thing that when we kind of like imagine a big bang is a kind of like a thing is that now when the two bubble are actually collide and bubble are kind of like a somebody just explode or things like that. So when the explode actually happened, the big bang is actually happened. Okay, yeah. But still it's not actually represent the reality. Okay, yeah, because bubble is a kind of like a very different thing, and the universe are actually very different thing too. Okay, yeah. By the way, let me tell you the perspective. Okay, yeah. uh, like whatever the information that we have, whatever the technology that we have, still we cannot able to kind of like determine how big is our universe, because universe is kind of like a so big that we can't even imagine. It's very big. If I'm gonna say mention a universe is kind of like a somely unlimited scale that probably just it can't imagine. And that's what kind of like a simply lack of thought process of our human being. Because just like like basically our power that we could imagine anything, but we cannot imagine that how big is our universe. And that's a beauty in itself, or that's a limitation that we have, or that's a kind of like a somebody the nature actually created us, that ki you can kind of like a think about your point of perspective, you cannot able to think about the universal level point of perspective. Why? Because you are not meant for that probably. Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's somewhat something. Okay, yeah, whatever. It's a probably is this thing that if the kind of like a simply parallel universe actually collide and things like that, probably is this thing that ki like I only kind of like a think about that ki multiple variation of happen will gonna happen, multiple variation will gonna kind of like exist at the same time. Okay, yeah. And this is kind of like a create chaos and problems and god knows what would happen. Okay, and by the way, I mentioned that key each decision kind of like a creates its own reality. So I'm not kind of like a took only one decision in my entire life. I took almost like a thousands of decision in every single day. Okay, yeah. So it represent kind of like creates new reality and things and that probably. Okay, yeah. It's a kind of like a somebody imagine a kind of like a somebody a tree has a kind of like a somebody like basically is this thing the tree is actually created by multiple branches and things like that. Okay, yeah. There is a one single branch is actually at the bottom, and then suddenly it kind of like a when it went into the kind of like a sub branch, and then kind of like a assembly leaves, and kind of like there is a multiple branches in the tree. Okay, and you cannot kind of like assembly you cannot count those things because it's intertangle and things and that it's very chaos in itself. So that's it probably. All right, so this is my thought process regarding about the parallel universe that actually collide. Okay, yeah. By the way, it's a kind of like a very frictionalized version to think about that. And yeah, I don't know, it's just like that I wanted to talk about kind of like a somebody, yeah, actually possible perspective, but still. All right, so this is it, and thank you.